What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Die Hard MMA podcast. I'm your host, as always, your boy Clint, coming to you on a Monday night to break down some fighting action. And this week we've got some extra fun stuff on the table. This is not the Die Hard UFC podcast. This is the Die Hard MMA podcast. There's no UFC event this week, so we will be discussing Bellator 273. But first off, I got to ask if anybody got the number of that bus. Holy crap, did I get run over at UFC 270. I dropped an absolute pile of money, 7 units in the tank for the second fight of the career. You know what? I have a history of not doing well on the big pay-per-view numbered events, and I usually do really well on undercards. So I thought this time around, you know what? I'm going to attack the undercard. I'm going to hit those spots really, really hard, and then I'm going to go easy. I'm going to do smaller bets on the main event stuff, the stuff that I always get wrong. Well, this week, UFC 270 threw a counter punch at me because I got everything wrong on the undercard, but I nailed the main card. So cashed the little bets, lost the big bets. I'm over it. I'm done. So what I've done is I've found an expert in the field, someone who you may know, who we all greatly respect, to join me to break down Bellator 273 from a betting perspective, and we are going to try to make all that cash back for everybody. I am joined by none other than Bleed. What's up, buddy? How you doing tonight?
Hey, man, I'm doing great. Glad to be back on the show. Hey, man, shout out to everybody, Pub Sports Radio, my man Die Hard, Clint. Hey, you didn't have a good week last week. Let's get you bounced back. This is a decent Bellator card, my man. I see some pretty good spots. Clint, I know you love you some good plus money underdogs. I think we got some really good options this week. Let's try to make some money. Let's try to make some money for the folks watching.
I love it, baby. Let's go. Now, Bellator is notorious. We were talking about this backstage. Bellator is notorious for being the chalk special. And as always, these lines opened wide and they're getting pounded. Like, there's going to be massive value on a couple of these underdogs. Hopefully we line up on the same ones and see how we pan out here. But real quick, Bleed, before we get started, how'd you do at UFC 270? How was the night for you?
I did pretty good. You know, I have a Patreon that I send out bets to. We went 3-2 on the night for a little bit of profit. You know, could have been an absolute red panty night if my man Cyril Gahn could have maintained that top control in the 5th round. It is what it is, you know. Luckily, got on Figueiredo. Phenomenal bet there. So like I said, a decent night, squeaked out a little bit of profit. Could have been a far better night had the main event gone my way. Congrats to you, Clint, you know, being on Ngannou. I know the fight didn't play out probably how anyone in the world played out, but hey, if you're on Ngannou, you cash the ticket. Props to you. Much respect. It's a wild game, and the craziest outcome sometimes is the right outcome. What are you going to do, right?
Yeah, man, and I appreciate the shout out there. That's one of those spots where every single time, man, it never fails. There's always one of these. I tweet out Francis Ngannou money line, and everyone in the chat is, why aren't you just taking the knockout prop? Why aren't you just betting the knockout prop? And I'm like, Francis is the exact guy that you make that argument for, right? Like, why would you not take plus 145 instead of plus 130? Because he only wins by knockout. And that's where, guys, we don't know as much as we think we do in this space. MMA is the craziest game out there, and I have been burned too many times by getting fancy. Now, if you're getting 2-1, if you're getting plus 200 on Francis by knockout, now we can talk. That's enough of a difference. That's enough value. But getting just like 15 cents of value, don't get fancy. Play the money line. Nights like Saturday night are the nights that will save you because you didn't get a little too fancy with it.
Absolute words of wisdom, folks. Take it in.
Yeah, I've made that mistake one too many times, if you couldn't tell, and
I've been there.
burn some cash on it. I want to welcome everybody into the chat. We do have 32 live viewers right now. As always, those numbers are going to go up. People will trickle in. We don't have to compete with football on Mondays anymore. Thank God for that. Everybody, do me a favor. smash that thumbs up. Let the algorithm know that you're enjoying the free content. Follow my man Bleed if you haven't already on Twitter. He's an excellent capper. He's got a Patreon page where he puts everything out there. One of the OGs here with the Die Hard Nation. I do want to also give a quick shout out and apology. There are a couple of you OG followers and viewers of the show that like to support me. Every once in a while you send like a little tip or a donation, something like that. And usually about once a quarter, once every other month, something like that, I do like a shout out session. I write everybody's names out. I let everybody know I thank you live on the show. I'm behind. I am so sorry. I really appreciate you guys. You are literally the best. Guys like Michael Lunday that are just have always been with me the whole way through. I swear I will get to that shout out run through. You've not been forgotten. I do apologize, and thank you so much for the love and support. I just wanted to make sure you guys feel heard out there. I want to shout out the chat here real quick. Dog MMA, Grateful Dude. We've got Hype MMA, Rick the Ruler, CM. We've got Blazis Brisky, Raw Torque in the house. Rory C, Real Deal Prime, my guy Boston Nick MMA killing it on the live streams on Saturday for the watch-alongs here at Pub Sports Radio. And Dan Goldstein, what's up, buddy? All right, that's enough. We can go ahead and get straight on into this show now, man. I've got a 7-unit hold to dig my ass out of. So let's start off with nothing other than the main event. We are talking Ryan Bader taking on Valentin Moldavsky. And unless I'm mistaken, Ryan was always Darth Bader. I believe he has officially changed his fight name to Master. So he is now Ryan Master Bader for the last couple fights here of his Bellator career. I don't think that the UFC let him get away with that one. And now that he's let's be honest, man. He's probably going to close up shop here in the next couple of years over at Bellator. So he's probably like, forget it. I don't care. He went ahead and changed that bad boy. This is a weird fight. So Bader lost the light heavyweight strap. Obviously, we saw that the last time. He's coming off of a rebound victory over Lyoto Machida. Not necessarily the most impressive fight I've ever seen in my life. Before that, back-to-back TKO losses against Vadim Nemkov and Corey Anderson. This guy's just not built for 205 anymore, man. I feel like he was a big guy at 205. It took a lot out of him to get down there, and ever since he moved up to heavyweight over in Bellator, I feel like he's looked better. I just think he does better without cutting the weight these days, but his durability is gone. So at heavyweight, I'm curious if the cut has anything to do with it, because he is still the heavyweight champion. He is still a very big dude. He's got that nice timing on the blast double legs. But if he gets touched up, man, he shells up. He shells up so quick when he gets hit. And speed kills. And that's really what Valentin Moldavsky brings to the table here. He's 11-1, Team Fedor prospect. He's smaller. He's one of these little style heavyweights. He usually weighs in around 230-ish or so not the biggest guy at the heavyweight roster. But he is so athletic. He is so quick with those hands. He's good at wrestling. He grinds his opponents up against the cage. And the weirdest thing I noticed is he's only got one KO victory. Like Valentin Moldavsky, for all the prowess, for how good he is, for how hard he hits, the way he bloodies people up with those punches, he's only TKO'd one guy. He really decisions pretty much everybody. And this has me shaken to my core that I go, is this the guy that Bader can actually beat at heavyweight? Right now, you've got Valentin Moldavsky, a minus 325 favorite. The current sitting Bellator champion is plus 250, plus 260. And there's something about that just screams disrespect to me, because if Moldavsky doesn't have the pop on his punches to KO people, Bader potentially can win this type of a grinding match in this spot. The problem is, I try my damnedest not to bet on chinny fighters. And with a guy like Bader, one shot is all it takes to shell him up. How do you see this fight playing out, Bleed? Is there value on the champion, or is this a spot where you parlay up that newcomer and say, and new?
Yeah, I got to be honest. I do think this is the spot that if I'm making a play on it, I'm definitely leaning towards the favorite here. I think you pretty much nailed it. I mean, I really don't have a lot to add to this. You've nailed every critical component, I feel like, that comes down to this fight. But for me, the thing that absolutely stands out is that durability of Ryan Bader. Ryan Bader, I still feel like, is a serviceable hammer, right? If you let Ryan Bader go out there and do Ryan Bader things, he still can look very good. But Ryan Bader is one of the worst nails out there, okay? When it comes to taking damage, when it comes to taking a shot, I mean, he just doesn't have it anymore, you know? Maybe never took, you know, big boy power the way you would expect someone who's even had the level of success he's had. But, you know, the thing that gets me is you see when this guy gets hit, he's affected. Every shot that seems to touch him, he's turning away. He's, you know, the knees are going. I just don't like defensively what I'm seeing. It makes me honestly question a bit of the heart. Like you said, Clint, I don't know if we've got a lot of Ryan Bader fights left in us. You know, the guy's not terribly old, and he is fighting at heavyweight. I mean, if he wanted to, he could do just like almost everybody does, and drag it out way too long, take way too many beatings and way too many L's. I got to be honest, though, regardless of this weight cut, which I do like a heavyweight Bader at this point better than a light heavyweight, but I don't know if that durability is there. You know, Moldavsky, the younger man by a decade, the guy that you said, you know, not really a knockout guy, but I think when this fight comes down to it, it's going to be the youth. It's going to be that gas tank. I think Moldavsky's going to be able to grind him. You know, is there a world where this fight plays out and Ryan Bader wins? I suppose so. Is there a world where perhaps there's some value on Ryan Bader? Yeah, I'm not saying Ryan Bader can't win this fight. He's a huge dude. You know, maybe he finds that shot. Maybe he's got enough wrestling in him to win some of these exchanges, land some good ground and pound at some point, and finish the fight. But when it comes down to it, the heavy favorite it is. I can't take the shot on Ryan Bader at this point in his career. I can't back a guy that I have durability concerns with at such a big weight class.
I couldn't agree more, man. And I think this is one of those spots where, you know, we talk about Bellator being chalky. Obviously, shout out to the man himself, Cody Saftik, that does the PRP parlays. This is the ideal spot, man. You anchor any parlay you're playing on Moldavsky, because Ryan Bader is a plus 250 underdog. That is the easiest hedge of all time. If you have any parlays, toss Moldavsky in them, and then if your parlay makes it to that final leg, you have the easiest, quickest hedge out at plus 250 to make sure that you lock up and guarantee profit, but roll the dice on the bigger score by letting Moldavsky win. Bleed, honestly, man, I just think we see Bader get folded up here. I'm going to say like third round. I know we don't see a whole lot of finishes from Moldavsky, but like you mentioned, once Bader starts to tire, once he starts to wear down, those fast hands are going to end up being a problem for him. I don't think it's going to be an early finish because Moldavsky's just not that kind of a power puncher. But once Bader slows down, I do think Moldavsky ends up TKOing him at some point. And then I think he hangs it up because realistically, man, he fought through the light heavyweight tournament. He lost his light heavyweight strap. He was KO'd by a light heavyweight contender. Now he's got the heavyweight belt. That's really what he can hang his hat on. He's nowhere in the light heavyweight division. How do you come back from losing your belts back to back? Like how as a fighter do you lose not one but two belts and then go, let's get it? Like has anyone ever lost both belts, Bleed? Like every double champ in history, that's been such a big thing the last 5 years since Conor McGregor or so. Everyone who has gotten two belts, I don't think anyone's ever lost both. They've always conceded one.
Right. I'm with you. You're right. This does look like a unprecedented situation. Yeah, I mean, you might be right. Hey, listen though, I'm going to tell you right now, Scott Coker, Ryan Bader, he's probably cashing some pretty good paychecks. So I don't know if he's going to hang it up just yet. But I do think Ryan Bader's best days are absolutely in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, man, gotta be. So I mean, we're in agreement here. We like the favorite, absolutely. Like I mentioned, I think a nice hedge opportunity if you are looking to do any parlays and things like that. Sprinkle a little something on Bader if you want to. With this being the only fight card over the weekend, I don't know if they'll do round props for Bellator, but if they do, I may be sprinkling the 3, 4, and 5 on Moldavsky here, man. I do want to say, James, I'm doing well, man. Thank you for asking. What's up? And thank you very much for hanging out with us tonight. The Ducks are the degenerate action tonight. I'm fading those Boston Bruins. All right, everybody. We have gone over the main event here. Let's move right on down the line to the co-main event. Another very familiar face to most of us who have been doing this for a while. Ben Henderson, former UFC champion as well, taking on Islam Mamedov. And oh boy, man, it's another gigantic juiced favorite spot where we've got an aging UFC veteran taking on that next level competitor. Islam is a minus 450 favorite, with Ben Henderson being a plus 310-ish underdog here in this spot. And I don't know what to make of Ben right now, if I'm being honest with you, Bleed. He really kind of settled into a bit of a rut the last time out. I'm sorry, not the last time out. He's been in a bit of a rut. He was on a 3-fight losing streak, but in his last fight, he fought Brett Primus. And boy, did he come out hard. Like, he finally seemed to kind of snap out of whatever was bothering him in that last fight. He came out much faster, much harder. We saw a much more improved game. You know, the kicking offense was back. The grappling was on point. He ended up, losing that fight, unfortunately, but it was very competitive. Ben Henderson felt like, even in a loss, he was back in that fight. I still don't know that I can get behind him against a Russian monster, though. Islam is going to be 3 inches taller than Ben Henderson, and he is your classic Russian grinding wrestling grappler, and that's just kind of worst case scenario. I know Ben Henderson's got that jiu-jitsu pedigree. He's got that squeeze on him. He can always take somebody out with a choke, but it's been years. It's been years since we've seen the old school finishing Ben Henderson, this new, old, grindy type of Ben Henderson. I just don't see how he wins here, man. 20-1, young Islam Mamedov. I think he gets the win here.
I'm so with you. I mean, to me, this wasn't a tough pick at all. We're talking about a fading Ben Henderson, a guy that, if you've been following the sport, has achieved the highest highs, right? The UFC lightweight champion, when that was absolutely the UFC's glamour division. Has beat legends, has been in there with some of the best in the best, but, it really just comes down to this. Ben Henderson's just not the man he once was, hasn't been the man he once was for years, in my opinion. And coming in here against a guy like Mamedov, okay, let me break something down for the folks here. Mamedov, a PFL veteran, right? Never lost a fight in PFL, yet never cashed that $1 million check. However, he did beat Natan Schulte, who's cashed multiple $1 million checks. I think it's a visa issue. I think it's a matter of timing that this guy's not been probably a multimillionaire in PFL. I think he's the real deal. I think he comes in here, man. You nailed it. Russian grinder. I think that's exactly what he does. This is a guy that had a very close fight with Brent Primus. I had a bet on him. Close fight. Did have me concerned at times, but man, Brent Primus, a grappling stud. The guy's so unreal strong. A guy that, absolutely is making a home at Bellator and taking full advantage, if you understand me. USADA looks at Brent Primus and their eyes pop. So, and Mamedov, had no problem holding him to the mat. So I think it's going to be a pretty similar situation here. Probably not going to be an exciting fight, but I think Mamedov comes in here and does what Mamedov does, which grinds out a boring decision win. And I feel fairly confident in it.
I completely agree, man. For these first 2 fights, it's definitely going to be chalk city. And I mean, if you parlay those 2, it's still minus 175. Like, that's right. These are the kinds of big fat chalk lines we're talking about. But believe it or not, at minus 175, that might be value in these spots, because I just think these UFC vets here, I see it. These UFC vets are they're so shot at this point, man. I don't see it happening any other way. And I think the only reason that Islam didn't cash in the PFL is the point scoring system, because he's a grinder. You've got to get those finishes to go ahead and get those extra points up in the tournament over at PFL. If you're grinding away 3-round decision victories, you're never going to touch that $1 million in the PFL.
It's a great point.
All right. We are moving right along, man. We got another good fight coming up next. We've got Henry Corrales taking on Aiden Lee. And I'll be honest with you guys, I've got a real soft spot for Henry Corrales, because once upon a time, I put my tinfoil hat on and I made a crazy bet on Henry Corrales against Aaron Pico at like 6-1. And I cashed that ticket. People called me insane when I tweeted out that pick because how dare you ever go against the second coming of George St. Pierre, Aaron Pico. But we got it done, baby. So I like Henry Corrales. I'm always a little intrigued by this guy because you know what? He's a real journeyman type of fighter. He loses to the very best guys out there, but he does everything well. He's well-rounded. He's got some pop on his punches. He is durable. He's never been knocked out. And on top of that, my boy moved out to Fight Ready bleed. And we just saw what Fight Ready can do with Deiveson Figueiredo. I keep preaching, screaming from the mountaintops that Fight Ready is the gym of the future. And the way that they turn these men into monsters is just something else. So even somebody like Henry Corrales, who is teetering on that edge of being, a real solid, legitimate fighter, he's the type of guy that they can bump up a level, in my opinion. Now, Henry Corrales is minus 150 in this spot. Aiden Lee looks to be plus 125. Money is coming in on Aiden Lee. There's only 125 out there at one book, BetMGM. He's all the way down to even money, plus 100, plus 110, pretty much everywhere market-wide. So money is coming in here on the dog. Aiden Lee is 10-5. He's got a super tall, long Muay Thai striking style. He really likes to attack the body. He's got a long jab, and he keeps a pace. This guy's got some slick, fluid striking. He is a submission artist, too. He's got 6 of his 10 wins by sub. 9 years younger, 5-inch reach advantage. I mean, really no joke. That 10-5 record may be just a little bit underselling what this kid is capable of. This is one of the closest lined fights on the card, bleed. There's very few of these pick'em style fights in Bellator, and this is one of, I think, 2 tonight. So are you leaning with the favorite? Are you one of those people driving that line down on this underdog here? How do you lean for this one?
I'm absolutely one of the people driving that line down. As a matter of fact, I drove that line down earlier today. Henry Corrales, I like Henry Corrales. He, like you said, very well-rounded, skillful in every area, good boxing, dangerous guy. You get in the pocket with Henry Corrales, good luck. It's a coin flip situation. Whoever lands first is probably going to win. And if he lands, you might lose your consciousness. And I do feel like that's definitely the case here. And I think that's Henry's best chance to win this fight. Keep it standing, keep this fight at striking range. But man, Aiden Lee, you said it, young kid on the come up, a lot of submission wins. And I like the growth. I like what we're seeing out of an Aiden Lee. I think that this fight is a decent matchup for Aiden Lee as a plus money underdog. I think I'm willing to take the shot here. The one thing though, man, and you nailed it, Clint, the fight ready aspect. And maybe we do see a renewed Henry Corrales here. Maybe we see an even improved fight IQ, improved strategy. Clint, dude, I am right there with you on the fight ready bandwagon. That was enough. Literally, the fight ready move was enough to make me pop the shot off on Deiveson Figueiredo last week. Based off that second Moreno fight we saw, there's no way I was going to end up betting this guy. I felt like, man, everything that we learned moving to the camp, the Henry Cejudo factor, Eric Albarracin, fight ready in general, I'm with you, dude. And I get it, man. And Henry Corrales, I'm expecting to see a very good Henry Corrales. He is an older guy, though. And I like Aiden Lee. I think stylistically, this could be a good matchup. A lot of subs. Henry Corrales, what's the type of fighter he traditionally loses to? A grappler, a high-level grappler. I think Aiden Lee may make this a close, scrappy fight, maybe even finds the sub.
Yeah, man, I think there's definitely some upside for violence here in this fight because Henry Corrales does give up those submissions, and Aiden is very skilled once it hits the floor. If this thing hits the ground, there's definitely a chance that Lee chokes him out. However, if he is able to go ahead and crash that pocket, get in close on Aiden Lee, there's also that knockout threat coming from Henry Corrales. I want to really see the weigh-ins on this one, Bleed. I want to see what Fight Ready has done to Henry Corrales. If he has that usual physical transformation that we see out of Fight Ready fighters, I might end up settling with him and taking the shot on the Fight Ready angle. I have not bet this fight yet, but I do totally understand anybody taking the shot on Aiden Lee because he does seem to have that higher ceiling, having that reach advantage and that youth advantage. You can't buy those. You know what I mean? You can't teach that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. So maybe slightly on the opposite side from you here, but again, not something I feel super convicted about. We'll see how I feel as the week goes on. For those of you who tune into this show regularly, I will tell you exactly what I am betting on. This is not financial advice. I'm a degenerate gambler, and I'm telling you where my action is. We're going to break down every single one of these fights for you and hopefully help you make a better, more informed gambling decision. I haven't bet anything yet for this card. I'm probably going to lock up some action, but I wanted to run through this stuff with Bleed first. So at this point in time, I have no official picks yet. You're going to have to give me a follow on Twitter to see what I end up locking in after the show. Shout out to Derek Wilcox saying 65 watching, only 27 likes. Come on, folks. Those are rookie numbers. Let's hit that like button. Get those numbers up for me. Next fight up, Sabah Homasi taking on Jaleel Willis. And this is a very interesting scrap, in my opinion, man. Sabah Homasi, 15-10, training out of American Top Team. Just the classic killer be killed fighter. You love to see guys like Sabah Homasi because he brings it every single time. 10 of his 15 wins by knockout, 6 of his 11 losses by knockout. This guy's got some hard Justin Gaethje-style leg kicks. Good work up against the cage. He knows how to circle off, reverse his position. He really knows his way around that octagon, that grinding cage up against the fence. But he was handpicked by Paul Daly, man. This guy was literally handpicked by Paul Daly to be a retirement fight for him because he knew he was going to be able to knock this man out and go out on a high note. And then Paul Daly messes it up and goes ahead and takes another fight and ends up with a loss instead of going out riding off into the sunset like he was supposed to. But Sabah Homasi's got knockout losses to guys like Paul Daly, Tim Means, twice to Abdulrazak Al Hassan, but he does own like a decision win over Curtis Millender. So if you're not facing a vicious power puncher or a striker that's that much slicker than you, Sabah Homasi's the kind of guy that can come in here and tear some people up. Now, Jaleel Williams, 15-3, much prettier record. This guy likes to strike at range, and he's an excellent counter striker. He likes to move backwards, makes you go first, comes in with big looping hooks and overhands to make you pay for overextending, and he's really okay with moving backwards. That's one thing that I know counter striking is his game, but if he goes to the cards, I think he can end up on the wrong side of the judges sometimes because he is always giving up ground. Now, he's got a strong body lock. He does and is fully capable of bullying people around the cage. He will have a 1-inch reach advantage in this spot, and 10 of his 15 wins are by decision. So he tends to be much more durable. I definitely think this is one of those fights where the fighters got to implement their style, right? If Sabah Homasi forces a brawl, he's totally live in this spot. Mm-hmm. If Jaleel Williams is able to control that range, control that distance, move around the way he wants to, and kind of pinpoint his opponent, then I think he absolutely can put Sabah Homasi down because we've seen that chin cracked before. We've got Jaleel Williams, a minus 275 favorite, Sabah Homasi plus 200, plus 220. Is this a spot where you take a shot on the puncher's chance, Bleed, or are we still riding the chalk on this one?
Man, so this is one of those fights where I feel like, Jaleel Willis should be the favorite, right? I'm comfortable with that. I feel like when I think about this fight as a whole, the most apparent path to victory to me seems Jaleel Willis comes in here, wrestles his way to victory. But I think we've got some value on Homasi here. I think there's I think he's got a good shot. If he can stuff some takedowns, make this fight dirty, not end up on his back, not end up with Jaleel Willis in that dominant top position, I think this becomes a much closer fight. I think it becomes a dog fight. And like you said, Homasi in a dog fight as a big underdog, it's one of those spots. I'm going to put it like this. And we kind of talked about this earlier in the night before we went live. I think that this is one of those spots where if you are going to bet it, you're almost forced to be on Homasi. I just don't have the bravery. I don't trust in the guy. The guy's got double-digit losses. I feel like he's one of these dudes that you just can't bank on getting the best Sabah in every fight. We see some variance from performance to performance, I feel like. Dare I say, though, I do feel like this fight should be lined closer. If you are a value bettor, if you are a value player, it's Sabah Homasi, it's dog or pass. But Unfortunately, I do think Willis wins this fight. I think he wins this fight, but this is one of those guys that I'm waving the red flag. I'm putting that question mark on the end. This is not a guy that I would feel ultra comfortable parlaying, or if you are parlaying, having him as one of your, dare I say, anchor points, or your absolute base builders. I got a funky feeling about this one, and I just wouldn't be surprised if Sabah Homasi wins it. At the same time, I'm not running to go out and bet Sabah Homasi.
Bleed, I couldn't agree more, man. I think you absolutely nailed it. I don't trust Jaleel Williams at all. Just the way he fights. I don't trust him one single bit. This is definitely a dog or pass spot. I think Jaleel Williams should maybe be minus 150, something in that range. I don't believe he should be in the minus 300 range, but as we always see with these Bellator cards, the favorites just get hammered. So everybody sees the same thing. The money flows in all one way, and the guy that should be minus 150 ends up being minus 450 by the time the fight kicks off. Be careful on this one, folks. Sabah Homasi absolutely is the puncher's chance kind of guy that can get in here and mess with a guy like Jaleel Williams. So we see that one very similarly, man. I completely agree that this is one of those sketchy ones that honestly I'm probably just going to avoid.
My gambling advice on this fight: keep your money in your pocket.
Absolutely. And hey, I got to shout out the chat here real quick. JR tuning in saying, thanks for losing me a bunch of money once again, Clint. Hey, JR. First off, it's only the second fight card of 2022. If you've been rocking with me, we made over 30 units over the course of 2021. We made 3 units the first fight card of 2022. So yeah, we had a bad night this weekend. Absolutely. But we are padded, bro, if you've been rocking with me up until this point. So if you just tuned in, which it doesn't sound like you did, I apologize if we lost on your first time watching the show. We never want that to be the case. But sounds like you've been, rolling with me before. You know how this works. I'm not telling you what to bet on. I'm telling you what I am betting on. And I put my own hard-earned money on it myself. So if you choose to gamble along with me, you're a big boy. You can make grown-up adult decisions. And if you chose to put your money on it, then you got to own that. So thanks for tuning into the show. I appreciate you hanging out with us tonight to talk about Bellator. We are moving right along, except I didn't queue up the next fight like an idiot. So give me just 1 second here. This is one bleed that I can't wait to talk to you about. Maybe the sleeper fight of the card for me here. Darrion Caldwell taking on Enrique Barzola. Now, Enrique Barzola, a lot of you may be, not super veteran Bellator people going, I know that name. Why do I know that? Enrique Barzola is a very recent UFC cut. He fought to a draw with Ronnie Yahya. So very, very interesting for him to come off of a draw rather than a loss and end up getting cut from the UFC. But he did. And he is taking on a former champion in Bellator, in Darrion Caldwell. Now, Caldwell, he's training out of Sanford MMA, slick wrestling. This guy is really fast, really athletic, heavy top game. If he gets on top of you, you're going nowhere. He's got that flowing top pressure where once you get underneath him, you're really just kind of shit out of luck. You got to make sure you don't get underneath him to begin with because he'll just ride out the entire round. But he relies on the grind. He relies on that control time. One of the nastiest submission losses I've ever seen when he fought AJ McKee, where he got the fight exactly where he wanted to be and got caught in, I don't even remember what the name of the sub was. You know the
guillotine.
The guillotine. Nobody else hits that bad boy. Well, Darrion Caldwell, he's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage here in this fight. Enrique Barzola, 16-5-2, trains out of AKA. Again, like I said, coming off that draw to Ronnie Yahya, which, Yahya is not in the best shape these days, Bleed. That's not a great look to be going to a draw with that man. But credit to him, he dropped the first 2 rounds to Yahya and then came back and nearly killed him in that 3rd round to get a 10-8 and the draw. I actually bet Enrique Barzola that night, and I was thanking my lucky stars I got away with a push there because I thought for sure it was going to be an L. He got stuck under Yahya, though. For a guy where wrestling is supposed to be, his thing, he got stuck under Ronnie Yahya for 2 full rounds. Caldwell doesn't have the gas tank concerns. Caldwell doesn't have the gas tank issues of Yahya, and he does have the choking prowess. He's got 5 submission wins, all by choke, either rear naked choke or guillotine. So the same exact kind of a threat that Yahya would bring to the table. The big question mark for me here, Bleed, is that this is only going to be the second fight for Enrique Barzola down a weight class. He dropped down to face Ronnie Yahya. That was his first time at that weight class. This will be his second fight down a class, so he should be the stronger man. And looking at his Instagram, he is taking full advantage of being in Bellator, man, like you mentioned before, because he is in some kind of shape. I have never seen the physique that we are seeing on Enrique Barzola right now. So are we getting a discount on a champion in Darrion Caldwell because of that UFC name tag rolling over here? Is this the spot where we just fade the UFC fighter, welcome to Bellator, baby, and cash that underdog ticket against them? Or are we buying into the special juices that Enrique Barzola seems to be drinking with breakfast every morning and laying the -135 with the favorite? How are you approaching this fight, man?
Whew, boy, you bring up some good points there, Clint. And hey, one thing I want to point out, though, I'm not so sure that Barzola was cut. I think he just fought out his contract and got offered a better money deal from Bellator and took it. So maybe not so much, the UFC wasn't so impressed. The UFC plays hardball. And man, as far as money and all that, I think Barzola just got a better deal from Bellator. I could be wrong, but I think that was the scenario.
I'm going to have to look that up. I apologize, because if he wasn't actually cut, I definitely don't want to misspeak on something like that. I do want to check that out, because if he took a better deal, then hey, all props to Barzola. If he left willingly and got paid better, good for him.
And yeah, and I could be wrong, but if memory serves me correct, I think that is the situation. But, talking about this fight, man, yeah, Enrique Barzola, right? Ultra tough guy, incredible aggression, comes forward. The fight he had against Evloev in the UFC, put some damage on Evloev early. I almost think caught him by surprise. This is a guy in Barzola that if you're looking to back from a gambling standpoint, no need to worry about this guy not giving you an effort. This guy goes out there and fights a hard 15, regardless of who they put in front of him. This is a guy that's going to fight for your money. But you know what? The one thing that really stands out to me and is going to be the deciding factor on which side I end up here is it's that takedown defense of Enrique Barzola, man. I watched the tape, and at times I almost feel like he's willing to accept position, right? I almost feel like some of these takedowns aren't even necessarily contested. He's fine with going to the mat. And with a guy like Darrion Caldwell, I just think it's a dangerous proposition, and styles make fights. And I do think stylistically, Darrion Caldwell does have an advantage here. But I got to tell you folks what, there's certain fighters out there. Clint, last time I was on the show, we talked about it. Michael Chiesa. Luckily, we both manned up, sacked up, and we broke the Chiesa curse, right? We put it behind us. We're going to never have to deal with that again. Well, I got to tell the folks, I had another curse that was equally as bad. Oh, no. Trevin Giles. Guess what? I shucked it. I beat it. I bet Morales last week. We cashed the ticket. Trevin Giles, I have lifted your curse off my shoulders. But I tell you what, Darrion Caldwell, you're my next cursed fighter. This is one of those guys that, I question the heart. I question the drive. I question the motivation. Darrion Caldwell is a guy that I've watched repeatedly be caught in guillotine after guillotine, and it's just the most infuriating thing you've ever done trying to back at Darrion Caldwell. And the thing is, and I'm gonna be honest here, okay? A lot of people aren't gonna like to hear this. Some people are gonna love to hear this because they love this type of drama, if you will. It is slightly suspicious to me. Darrion Caldwell always gets a guillotine finished in fights he's a -500 or beyond. Now, we're looking at a giant underdog, and somehow he's always feeding that head in for the guillotine. I don't know. A little bit suspicious to your boy Bleed here. Am I going to come out and say it? No, but I do have my suspicions. Hey, Clint, you ain't lying, my man. I wish I had one too, because it's the truth. And I got to be honest, that type of stuff lingers in my mind when we're talking about going out and backing a Darrion Caldwell. This is a guy that I've questioned motivation and drive, and that's not the type of guy that I'm looking to bet. But you know what? Unfortunately, styles make fights. I'm going to stick to my guns. I think stylistically, Darrion Caldwell is a very tough matchup for Barzola, and I'm going to take Darrion Caldwell. I'm going to take the underdog in this matchup.
Every time you come on the show, Bleed, we break in curses. That's what we're all about here. Now, unfortunately, going back to what you meant earlier, or what you said earlier, I have been all over the Giles fade train, so I didn't have a curse there. I actually went the other way, and I lost my money on Trevin Giles. I bought into him once, man. I've made piles going against him because I've never believed in him. I've never believed in his heart, and I definitely liked making money going against him. Bought in one damn time. Hurts the kid early, has him deep in a choke. It should have been over. And then Trevin Giles is Trevin Giles. He's the guy that I faded all those times and cost me money. I will never forgive him for biting me one time on the way out the door that way. But I'm glad you broke your curse. Let's break another one tonight. I think this is a live dog, man. Enrique Barzola, like you mentioned, is a guy who makes some positional mistakes. He gives up those takedowns, and you cannot do that against Darrion Caldwell. He is too good of a wrestler. His top game is too solid. And on top of that, Enrique Barzola gives his back up. Now, this is what I mentioned earlier. All of Caldwell's wins that are by submission are by choke, either rear naked choke or guillotine. Those are his two moves. He knows how to get those. And Enrique Barzola gives his back every single time he gets pinned up near the cage. I want to see them at weigh-ins. I want to see them actually size up to each other and see if the extra weight cut for Barzola is going to be something helpful to him. If he just looks massive when these guys get next to each other face to face, yeah, maybe we hedge out of that bet or something. But just stylistically speaking, blank slate, I think Barzola is a mid-tier UFC fighter rolling over to Bellator, and everyone has the impression that the UFC has the best fighters in the world. Everyone has the impression that the UFC fighters are going to be far and away better than any other organization. And it's simply not true. There are some incredible talents in these other shows. And we've seen it time and time again where the UFC fighter drops their first fight in a new organization. I think we see it again. I think Caldwell is championship material, and Enrique Barzola, at best, is fringe contender material. And we see the cream rise to the top here. I think Darrion Caldwell gets it done.
Absolutely. For me, it comes down to what Darrion Caldwell we get. If we get Darrion Caldwell at his best, I think Darrion Caldwell wins this fight. If we don't, Barzola's gonna make it dirty, and it could be a close fight. But give me the dog on this one.
I mean, it's always going to be a close, dirty fight with him, like you mentioned before.
Absolutely.
If you want a guy that's going to fight for your money, then that is absolutely Enrique Barzola. Unless he's unconscious, he is always going to be coming, and he wings those big power hooks. He's never all the way out of it. I expect round 3 to be terrifying, if I'm honest, Bleed. But I do think we get like a 29-28, not dominant, but clear type of decision victory here for Darrion Caldwell. Right after the show, that's my first bet. I'm going to be locking that one in and joining you on this one.
Sounds good to me, buddy.
Let's get it. Breaking curses, baby. Next fight up, Saad Awad taking on Chris Gonzalez. And I don't know what to make of Saad Awad, man. If I'm being completely honest with you, I just don't quite know what to make of this guy. He's training out of Fortis MMA, 24-13, so lots of experience, but has those double-digit losses that you mentioned. He snapped a 4-fight losing skid after a no contest. This guy walks in with his hands low. He is more than willing to get hit to go back and land a bigger shot on you. He's got nasty kicks, man. This guy mixes up leg, body, head kicks the whole way through the fight. He has heavy hands, big knees, and he throws everything with bad intentions. Like, Awad is always looking to straight finish the fight. The problem is he's 38 years old, and he slows down later in fights. The longer these things drag on, it tends to be a problem. He has 24 wins, and only 5 of those are by decision. Like, he goes out and tries to kill everybody. He's got a 1-inch reach advantage here, and Chris Gonzalez is 6-1. So the experience is just lopsided here, but he's 9 years younger. He is coming off of his first professional loss, and it was against Yamuchi, who is a slick fighter. Like, Yamuchi is an underrated, solid guy over in Bellator, and Chris Gonzalez just never really got going. He never had a chance to settle in. Yamuchi was one step ahead of him the whole way. Chris Gonzalez has got some solid wrestling skills, and he likes to play the outside. He likes to attack the legs. He's got a long jab. He's another one of these guys that, in my opinion, moves backwards a little bit too much. He tries to control that space, but because of that, he gives up ground. He's relatively low volume with the way that he strikes, and he's very hittable if you can close that distance on him, man. This is one of those spots where I think I can make an argument for Chris Gonzalez maybe being the favorite just because of Awad's ability to, we talked about those double-digit losses. He's not the best fighter you've ever seen in the world, but I don't think this is anywhere near what it should be. Chris Gonzalez is a minus 275 favorite right now. Saad Awad is a plus 220 underdog. And based on the reactions Chris had against Yamuchi, the way he was taking those shots, the way he was reacting to those punches, I think Saad is the kind of guy that can make him uncomfortable on the feet. I think Saad Awad is the kind of guy that can hurt him with those big power shots early and cause a problem. Again, I haven't bet this one. Definitely want to hear your take. But are we looking at another potential live underdog bleed?
I think so. Saad Awad, like you said it, double-digit losses, but let's dig in. Who's he losing to? The upper echelon of what Bellator has to bring to the table, which, like you said, is this the same as losing to exclusively UFC champions and contenders? Not quite, but there is a definite skill level involved here when it comes to who Saad Awad is beating and losing, right? And I think that's the real tale of this fight. What side of the talent level currently do I feel like Gonzalez is on? And we're talking about a very green guy early in his career, not even double-digit fights. I mean, Awad's lost more fights than Gonzalez has fought. You know what I mean? And the other thing with Gonzalez is, we dig into that record. Only one pro loss, right? Which, I got to be honest, getting absolutely outclassed on the feet by a submission specialist in Goiti Yamuchi, not exactly blowing me away. You know what I mean? Not necessarily the best omen here against a guy who throws heat like Saad Awad. Man, I watched the tape on Gonzalez and I'm just not impressed, But getting back to the record, so one loss, 6-1, but previous to that, 2 split decision wins, right? We're talking about a guy that's 1 round on 1 judge's scorecard away from not being 6-1. This is a guy that could easily be 4-3, almost a 500 fighter. We're talking about a heavy favorite here, fairly untested. The only test he's really had, in my opinion, of the upper echelon is Goiti Yamuchi, who's a very good fighter, by the way. I know he doesn't have the name value. That kid is legit. He is very good, and he should have outclassed Gonzalez. But you know what? As you said, Clint, I think I'm probably okay with Gonzalez maybe being a slight favorite here, but there is just inherently way, way, way too much value for me, Saad Awad here, for a guy who just got knocked out in the first round against a submission specialist. I say the value's just way too present, way too available on Awad. Are you gambling, taking a shot on an old man who, if it gets to the 3rd round, probably is going to come up just short of the finish line? Yeah, very likely. But I think there's a chance Saad Awad finishes this fight. I think there's a chance Saad Awad, even if he does make it to the finish line and go the full 15, might just win this fight off damage, just being the better striker and just winning this fight and pulling it out. The experience, the doggedness, the toughness. I got a lot of question marks, and I'm just not impressed by what I've seen in Gonzalez. I think Awad's the side here.
All right, Bleed, I am so happy to hear that because this is one of those ones where I feel like I'm out of my melon. Like, I looked at this and I was like, why is Saad Awad plus 220? Like, it didn't make any sense to me whatsoever, and I wanted to check and make sure I wasn't the only one seeing it that way because I was like, there's got to be something that I'm missing here, and it may not be us missing it. It may be the bookies missing it because I think we've got massive value on an underdog in this spot. Have you already bet this one?
I have not. This is one that I'm going to sit back. I'm going to watch weigh-ins. I feel like this is one that I'm going to have to wait on. I need to see size-wise. I mean, on paper, there's not a real size discrepancy here, which surprised me. I thought Gonzalez would be the bigger man until I dug in. I still think there's a chance at weigh-ins we might see he is the slightly bigger man. Let me get weigh-ins, and then I think I'm going to make the final read. And if things are kind of sitting in a similar situation, might be tough not to pull the trigger on Awad.
Those number pages always lie, don't they? You're like,
Absolutely.
I'm always looking at those things, and they say that a guy has like a 1-inch height advantage or something, and they're standing like like this. Who measured these men? Like it's never right. Real quick, folks. This is Pub Sports Radio. We have got 80 live viewers in the chat tonight. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us. Once again, please do us a favor, smash that like button. That is the best way that you can help us out here. Let the algorithm know that you're enjoying the free content always coming to you here. And real quickly, let's go ahead and hear a word from our sponsors. Welcome back to the Die Hard MMA podcast, everybody. We are talking we are talking Bellator 273. I'm joined by my man Bleed. Make sure you give us a like here. Give my man a follow over on Twitter. Subscribe if you haven't here to Pub Sports Radio. Next fight up, we are talking Dalton Rosta taking on Duane Johnson. And no, not that Duane Johnson, a much, much smaller Duane Johnson. Rosta, man, this guy, or Rosta, sorry about that, 5-0, undefeated, trains at ATT. This kid is an absolute tank, man. Heavy, heavy hands. Good wrestling, but this guy muscles everything. It's all power all the time. So he is extremely strong early in fights, but he falls off badly in rounds 2 and 3. Even though he's undefeated, man, these better fighters, when he kind of takes a little bit of a step up, they're making these fights competitive late if he can't get them out of there in the first round. He's got a 7-fight amateur career. Every single one of those is by finish. So up at the pros, he's having a lot less ability to really take people out the way he kind of needs to, the way he's built. But he's a young fighter. He's a growing fighter. He's the kind of guy that, you think he's got all the raw tools. He's in the right gym. Like, you expect them to straighten him out and turn him into something. Duane Johnson is 6-2. He's actually coming in here on short notice for this fight. He's got some slick grappling, man. He's got strong front headlocks. He likes his Darce choke. He actually TKO'd a guy on the regional scene with a teep kick, which I know, again, on the regional scene, it's not the most impressive thing in the world, but that is a hard kick to the gut. If you're able to just fold somebody over with it, that still doesn't happen very often. Duane Johnson is not someone who should necessarily be overlooked in this spot. However, you look at his record. Again, it's 6-2, and the total opponents' records are 24-43. He's fought absolutely nobody. Just a horrific level of competition. He has an 11-fight amateur record. This guy has never been finished. And that's kind of the one thing that sticks out to me here in this fight is even though he's fought relatively nobody, neither has Dalton. And he's a tough, durable guy. So if he's not going to get finished early, maybe this fight gets greasy. I mean, Duane Johnson has a 1-inch reach advantage. Dalton is a -750 favorite, plus 525 on Duane Johnson. Are you eating that kind of chalk on Saturday, Bleed?
Whoo, boy, I don't know about that one, man. That's just, Dalton Rosta, like you said, this kid, I mean, first off, let's just get to it. Look at this dude's physique. And with a name like Dalton Rosta, you'd almost think that, the guy'd be blazing big bingy like Zingy Marley, but it's just not the case. He's not dealing with no munchies. This guy is shredded, okay? A guy that I think hasn't really made the impact on the sport yet that I think a lot of the coaches and stuff at American Top Team think this kid's probably a future superstar in a lot of ways, you know? And don't get me wrong, this is a weird angle, but I just want to bring this up because I do feel like it has a bit of relevance. So he trains at American Top Team, right? I mean, one of the greatest gyms in the world. I mean, it's not even arguable. It's just not even arguable, the talent level and the coaches, right? If they're not the best, they're one of. I mean, and I truly think that that's the truth here. Okay, Dalton Rosta, again, not a big name guy. You know, at AEW Pro Wrestling, they bring Dalton Rosta. They got Junior Dos Santos. They got Kayla Harrison. They got all these big names. They bring Dalton Rosta to the wrestling. I think they're saying to themselves, wow, this is a kid that, you know, really has some ability to have some star power. Absolutely, man. I think he does. But, oof, this is a tough matchup, Clint. And I feel like you're kind of getting that. You're kind of smelling a little something on this fight. And I got to be honest, my man, I am too a bit, you know. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, you know, not an upper echelon guy, right? But like you said, you brought up all the very the valuable information here. A guy that doesn't get finished, a guy that can go the distance, you know, a journeyman of sorts, a guy that's lost to some lesser competition. That's a concern of mine. But like you said, man, this guy can grapple. I do worry that maybe this fight goes a little long. Maybe the glamour muscles of a Dalton Rosta can't go a hard 10, can't go a hard 15. All of a sudden, he's huffing and puffing. The Rock says, you know what? It's time to take this to the mat, hook up a Darce. We might be looking at a massive upset here. This is one of those fights, Clint. Again, I'm going to take Dalton Rosta. I'm going to take the favorite. But I don't think you're going to catch me even throwing a long shot out there on Dalton Rosta. I think he wins. I want the kid to win. He looks like a star to me. I think this is a kid that Bellator wants to build up, right? But man, I think the Rock's getting slept on a bit here, and that's a lot of value. I'm not going to bet him, but I think it's just enough to sway me off of Rosta. If this kid was, say, minus 250, minus 300, I probably do work him in a parlay. But you know what? Minus 750, we got to rein it in at some point, and I don't want to be the guy sitting there with a three-leg parlay that two legs easily cash and then a Dalton Rosta at a minus 750. Virtually no value blows for you. So that's how I'm looking at it. Little unfortunate. But man, what's my summary of this fight is proceed with caution.
Hey, quick sidebar for the degenerates in the chat. Quack, 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 quack. Ducks score first, baby. Ducks are up 1-0 in the first period. You gotta love it. Yeah, man, you nailed this. Absolutely nailed this. How is this man minus 750? I mean, the problem I'm having, Bleed, we talked about this backstage before we came live on this show. There have been three times in the year 2022 where I have said, you know what? I'm going to pick the favorite. I can't bet the favorite. There is value on the underdog. I've said that 3 times so far this year, and all 3 times that underdog has outright won that fight. Calvin Kattar versus Giga Chikadze, Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno, and then freaking Henry taking on Hani Barcelos. All 3 times I have said that there is value on the underdog, but I am too scared to bet it. Those are the times they have actually come through. The one thing, Bleed, that I think we can do for this fight, depending on your book, you know, DK usually has this option, live bet it. If you've got access to a book where you can live bet on this one, this is your perfect survive round 1 and then bet the dog situation. Because we know those glamour muscles for Dalton are going to be a problem early. If he gets this thing done in round 1, and he is fully capable of getting it done in round 1, you don't have to worry about missing out on your opportunity. You get to keep your money right there safe and sound in your pocket because you never put it down on this fight. But if this fight gets out of round 1, if you see that kid huffing and puffing, breathing deep, you know, those arms start to swell up with blood, that's going to make that Darce choke just that much tighter. And I think maybe that's when you look to take a little poke on Dwayne Johnson, because he will be something ridiculous like 10 or 11 to 1 after that first round. And I think that's maybe going to be my approach to this fight. Make sure Dwayne Johnson has a decent gas tank himself coming in here on short notice. Make sure he survives that first round. See if we can see some chinks in the armor of Dalton Rosa. And then if we can get all of that, the perfect combination, I think I live bet Dwayne Johnson on Saturday.
I think that's the angle, man, because like you said, you're going to, you avoid the danger. Say Dalton wins round 1, no harm, no foul, no money out of your pocket, right? Exactly. And then like you said, maybe there's a chance Rosta's dominant in round 1, gets up, huffing and puffing. And again, you get an even sweeter number. I will say this, though, you might be opening Pandora's box. You might have spilled the beans. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some other people jumping at that live number 2, probably driving it down. But who knows? It all depends on how that first round plays out. But Clint, my man, I think that's absolutely the angle here.
Yeah, we might have to be a little quick on that trigger finger if the round 1 line pops up, because I won't be the only one looking for it, I guess. But yeah, man, I mean, Dalton Rosta, he's just the kind of kid that you absolutely believe he's eventually going to be something, right? Like, he's just got all the raw abilities. I just don't know if he's there yet. Like, he could show up and look like a beast. This could be a setup fight. So be careful. And everybody parlaying the minus 750 could walk away saying, I told you so. But I'm like, man, you got to show me 1 or 2 more. I'm not a believer yet.
I mean, listen, if I don't have money on a minus 750 favorite who cashes, I got to be honest, I don't necessarily feel too bad about that. You know what I mean? So, right.
Fair enough. Good call. All right, man. The next fight on the card is Nikita Mikhailov taking on Blaine Shutt. 2 guys that I know absolutely nothing about prior to this week. And that's where, you guys, when we have fight weeks where it's UFC, PFL, and Bellator, God love them, there's so much degenerate action, but I don't have the time to dig in on these young no-names that I've never heard of before, and I miss out on so many valuable spots, and it upsets me. It keeps me up at night. It makes me cry a little bit. And this is one of those ones that I'm extremely happy that we've got a week to dedicate to Bellator for, because damn, Bleed, this Nikita kid, holy shit, is he aggressive. He's the real deal. 8-1, always moves forward, attacks that low calf. He is fast. He has strong counter wrestling. He is very good off of his back, and he's got slick scrambles and strong submission defense. This is the kind of kid that it reminds me of like Royval or Moreno, the way he works and scrambles and moves on the ground, but he wants to be on the feet. Like, he's got that in his back pocket. He wants to get up on the feet and beat the living hell out of you. He's got a 3-inch reach advantage over Shutt. Shutt is 8-5, and in his last fight got absolutely mauled by Perez. He's supposed to be a grappler, and he got bent over by a guy that was aggressive on the feet, and he was shooting for takedowns to save his life. He's got 6 of his 8 professional wins, all by submission, which, I'll be honest with you, Bleed, he is not going to land on a kid like Nikita. Nikita is currently a massive favorite, minus 750. And, we talked about in the last fight where Dalton Rosta might be a bed shitter. He might not be worthy of that 750. I think Nikita is worthy of every penny of that 750. How do you think about this fight?
I think you're exactly right. This is what a minus 750 spot's supposed to look like, okay? Yeah, I mean, the kid on tape's unreal, fighting an absolute stumble bum, in my opinion. We've entered the Bellator squash match portion of the card, the ones where they kind of set them up, you knock them down. Don't get me wrong. We've seen a man who was just supposed to be a warm body in there come out with a victory. We've seen it, and guess what? We're going to talk about one here very shortly that was supposed to be the case, and it wasn't the case. So buckle in. But I do, man. I think this is that spot. This is, another Team Fedor guy, a common element we're seeing in this card. They just needed to get somebody out there. Shutt's the guy. I mean, we're talking miraculous type scenario. I almost think that the Russian kid has a better shot of hurting himself and losing this fight as opposed to Shutt doing something and winning. And I hate to say it, I'm really not being in a joking manner when I say that. I really think that the more fluke scenario plays out here for Shutt than it does Shutt goes out there and is the better man, just because he's not.
I completely agree, man. I'm glad you see this the same way as me. We can actually save just a little bit of time because, I mean, like you mentioned, this is the favorite. This is the squash match. This is the one. Like he will look minus 2,000 and be lined at minus 750. Like this is the guy that we talk about when we say there is value on big chalky numbers. I think he absolutely wrecks this poor kid on Saturday. He's going to put up a highlight performance. I fully expect a TKO. If I can get a prop on him inside the distance somewhere, I will absolutely be betting it.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, here we go, man. Lucas Brennan taking on Ben Lugo. Another one where I had to dig in a decent bit here to kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about. Lucas Brennan is just 21 years old. They're looking to make another homegrown Bellator prospect out of this kid. And he is, unless I'm mistaken, the biggest favorite on the card.
Yeah.
This guy has slick submissions. He is a phenomenal scrambler. Very patient with his striking. He is one of these fighters that fights well above his age. You know, you think that he's 21 years old, but in the cage, he fights more like a 26-year-old with some experience under his belt. Very legit is Lucas Brennan. His opponent, Benjamin Lugo, is 5-4. He is an aggressive striker. He also likes to be the one moving forward. He's got a good right hand. Like, that's his real weapon, is his right hand. He's got a decent get-up game on him. And he's a fun fighter, but he's just not that skilled. I mean, he's almost a 500 record. This is that squash match setup that you were talking about. Lugo, the big concern for me is he makes some low IQ moves. Sometimes he'll dive on an arm or he'll dive on a neck without having the position set up. Very submission over position, looking for that finish. I mean, that's maybe something that you can drill or train out of him, but I don't think it's going to happen quick enough for this particular fight. He was brought in to lose here, man. He's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage over Lucas Brennan, but I just don't see this going any other way. Right now, Lucas Brennan is currently sitting at... Did they take him off the board? Oh, nope, there he is. Found him. 14, minus 1,400. So, yeah, biggest favorite on the card. You can get Lugo at plus 775. And that's where we start talking about banana peel price tags, where if Brennan slips on a banana peel somebody threw in the cage and knocks himself out, you cash that 7-8-1 ticket. You got to agree with me on this one, right, Bleed?
I can't listen. I can't agree more. As a matter of fact, let me pile on. First off, everything Clint said, I would just be repeating. It's 100% the truth. So let me point out one thing real quick for the folks here. Lugo, 5 wins, right, on his record. Opponents combined wins, professional wins. His opponents combined professional wins, 1. Okay. He has wins over fighters who have 0 wins, and he has 1 win over a fighter with 1 win, for a combined 1 win amongst every person he's ever beat. This is the squash match of squash matches. I got to be honest. I'm not overly impressed with the 20-year-old kid. Okay. He's got some good submissions. He's got some good stuff. Still very green. Still has holes in areas that I think could be exploited. But is this a kid that Bellator is going to slow roll? Is this a buildup? Is this a stepping stone? Absolutely. And Clint, you said it, man. The only way this fight's lost is the banana peel scenario. And I'm sticking to it. I think the massive favorite wins this fight.
Absolutely, man. I can't. The setup there, Bleed, I've got to give you some props here. That was hilarious. The combined record of his opponent's wins is 1. Oh, too good. If that tells you the level of competition. I do have to shout out my guy, MMA Locker Room, though. You may recognize him, one of the Pub Sports personalities here, saying he's on Lugo. And I am never in the business of talking somebody off a gigantic underdog price tag like that. Good luck, Locker Room. I can't even parlay someone like Brennan. There's no point in putting a 21 or a 14-1 favorite in a parlay. It's going to raise it, 15 cents? Like, right. Do yourself a favor, folks. Dog or pass. Because if you're doing anything with Brennan to get a price tag on him, you're going to have to parlay him. And if he happens to make the mistake that every once in a while 21-year-olds make, your whole parlay is dead, all for 15 cents. Like, there's no point.
Folks, we're talking the difference between minus 125 and minus 115. I mean, it's
Exactly.
just, please, it's like it doesn't even exist. Ignore this fight entirely unless you're willing to take that dog shot.
It's a fight that you have to sweat for literally no reason. And if
Right.
they're in some kind of a crazy transition and he gets his damn toe caught in the cage or something and gets DQ'd, or like you could just be ruining your night messing with that. Don't play with fire. There is no point whatsoever.
Absolutely.
All right. Glad we line up there on that one, man. We've only got 2 more fights to discuss. Thank you all so much for sticking with us on the show tonight. Let's talk about Weber Almeida taking on Fabricio Franco. Another one where I don't know anything about these guys. In fact, Bleed, when I did my research for the fight, this one was not listed. So I have no notes on either of these gentlemen, and I have no idea how to break this fight down for anybody. It looks like Weber is 5-1. His opponent, Fabricio, is 8-4. Both of these Brazilians coming in off of a loss. Man, I kind of hope that you might have done a little bit of research on this one, because I'm going to have to rely on you here, Bleed. Do you know anything about these guys?
Yeah, well, Clint, I got to tell you, that's not possible because this fight was literally added while we've been on this live stream.
Okay.
Yeah. So I haven't. I will say this, though. I am familiar with Weber Almeida. So Weber Almeida in his last fight was undefeated, came in, had a good amount of hype, was one of these classic heavy favorite undefeated Bellator fighters who went in there against, your journeyman type with a little bit of experience and got absolutely exposed by Johnny Soto. Johnny Soto cashed as a massive underdog against Weber in his last fight. And honestly, I don't know much about Fabricio Franco. So unfortunately, man, you're going to have to check back with me. I honestly don't feel comfortable putting any sort of analysis out there. I just haven't put the work in on this fight.
And that's always the tough part, man. Doing these types of shows and stuff, we can't give any type of opinion without doing the research, because God forbid if you say something,
right.
I've said so many dumb things. I have had so many hot takes that have just turned out to be so wrong, and I'm okay with that. I will stand by my hot takes where I am wrong, but what I don't want to do is put out something ignorant where I have no idea what the hell I'm talking about and have people try to use that as actionable information. So circle back, folks. If I have anything to add to it, maybe I'll do a little single breakout video, a tweet, or something along those lines to give you an idea of what I might be doing there. But right now, got nothing. Last fight of the night, Ben Parrish taking on Sullivan Cauley. And I'm excited for this fight, Bleed. Bellator knows exactly what they are doing with this fight. We are going to start the night with some fireworks. These are some big athletic boys. Sullivan Cauley trains with Bader. He is Bader's boy. He is a 2-time Golden Glove champion. This is a big, athletic, young kid. He knows how to fight long. He knows how to be explosive, and he has got some fast hands, big power right, sneaky little check lead hook. He's got a good get-up game. And one thing I really love to see with this kid, Bleed, when he gets in tight, he switches from punches to elbows. He immediately starts looking to crack those big cutting elbows on his opponents when he's got them up against the fence. This kid is 2-0 as a pro, and he is going to be a problem. Parrish on the flip side of this thing is 4-1. You look at this guy, and you wouldn't really expect a whole lot from him. He is surprisingly athletic with the body type that he has.
Right.
Very flabby, but it's a whole lot of extra skin. Now, I'm not trying to be degrading or anything like that. He looks like a guy who lost 300 pounds. He looks like a guy who blew way up, did the work, got the weight off, but he still just got all that skin kind of hanging on there. So very, very, very misunderstanding or misleading when you look at him. He is more than capable. He's got big power. He's got hard body and leg kicks, very explosive, and he's got some nasty killer instinct on him. He flurries when his opponents are hurt, and he absolutely goes for that kill. And when he gets his back to the cage, he kind of reminds me a little bit of Tyrone Woodley, where he rolls and counters off of the fence. He has hurt some people badly with that move. But one thing that's a little bit concerning is he did have an Anderson Silva-style leg break in 2019. He bounced back from that. He already had one fight back after that accident, but you just never know if those people are going to heal all the way from an injury like that. And he likes his leg kicks. So if he goes right back to work on those things, you just never know what you might end up seeing. But it's another tricky spot from a betting perspective. We've got Sully minus 225 as the favorite, plus 175 on Ben Parrish. And as much as, honestly, Bleed, I am sold on Sully. I really like this kid. I do think he's the goods. I do think he's going to be a problem. He's only 2-0. He's got so much time ahead of him in this sport, and he's still so young. Parrish is the type of guy that gets counted out every single time and just brings the war when he comes in there. So, I mean, when you look at these two, Cauley's going to, physically look like he's a minus 1,000 favorite, but when they get in the cage, I fully expect this fight to be relatively competitive until one of them hits the floor. If anything, I'm going to be looking to bet on violence in this fight. I think this fight ends in a hurry, Bleed, but I'm a little scared to lay that kind of chalk, even though I do think Cauley is the side.
Man, tough one. One I've been going over even today, back and forth in my mind, man. This is a very, very tough matchup, Like you said, Cauley, protege of Ryan Bader, he's getting in super high quality rounds with, upper echelon talent for a guy this young, this early in his career, a decent amount of amateur experience. A kid that I definitely think, Bellator wants to get behind, but at the same time, I almost feel like this is a matchup where Bellator can't lose, right? Sullivan, Cauley wins, they got the good looking kid that they can build up, maybe the heir apparent to Ryan Bader type storyline, right? And then on the other hand, you've got Big Tuna, right? The guy, the venerable underdog, right? The guy who looks like he came out of the stands, took his shirt off, put on a pair of spandex shorts, and knocked out Edwards as a plus 600 underdog, which, it's what he did. And like you said, man, the guy is aggressive. He's confident. If anything, it's almost like he's motivated by the fact that he doesn't look like a fighter and almost overcompensates, goes in there and gets extra mean, is just really about it. He's an about that life guy, even though he doesn't look like it at all. And it's very dangerous, but man, I got to tell you, Clint, I used some of my best material early talking about how I had a funny smell on some of these fights. This one's smelling a bit fishy to me, and I think it might be Big Tuna. Here he is as an underdog again, nowhere near that massive underdog he was in the first fight, right? Think opened a lot of people's eyes with that, phenomenal KO against a undefeated, highly touted prospect, right? But this is a dude that I expect, again, to come forward. I even think we probably see him in better shape. I wouldn't be surprised to see a physical transformation, because this is a guy who's built some hype, now probably been able to go full-time with this training, probably cleaned up the nutrition, probably cleaned up the diet, or maybe not. Maybe he's just the Roy Nelson type, blows up to 350 pounds. They say, hey, we've signed the contract and it's time to cut the weight, and I'll just show up with a deflated front butt, who knows? But, I will say this. I like what I see from Parrish. The problem is I feel like we do have limited tape. A guy who, like you said, is the only fight he's lost is a fight he broke his own leg, So a guy that you kind of can put an asterisk undefeated there. Tough matchup, man. I think I'm going to go Cauley, but again, and I hate to say it, I hate to be like this, folks. Usually I'm not this wary on a lot of these Bellator favorites. I'm usually that guy that puts together a couple very chalky parlays and cashes those suckers the majority of the time. I am very cautious on this Bellator. And Sullivan Cauley is one of those spots where I do have a sneaking suspicion that maybe Big Tuna cashes again as an underdog. All that being said, I think I'm going to take Sullivan, but man, if Big Tuna comes through again, it's not going to surprise me. And maybe it's just time we stop sleeping on the kid, but I'll go Sullivan Cauley here, but agonizing shot. I'm not confident, and it's one that I've been honestly flipping and flopping. So as low a confidence pick as it gets, really, for me.
I totally hear you there, man. And this is one where I feel a little bit bad because I am not sleeping on Big Tuna. I am absolutely not sleeping on Big Tuna. But I do think his opponent is the side. Like, it's not that I doubt him. It's just that I believe that much in Sully. I think this is going to be a hell of a fight. I think this one is going to be fun when they go back and forth. And I can't wait to see it. That's such a fun way to start the card off. And if anything, if I'm going to do a parlay, which I mean, who's kidding me? Of course I'm going to do a parlay. I think I'm probably just going fight doesn't go the distance rather than laying the wood on Sully. Because if Big Tuna pulls off this upset, I mean, he probably cracks the guy hard and puts him down. We'll see what ends up happening, but I am not laying the chalk here, even though I'm going to go ahead and pick Sully for this first fight of the night.
Makes sense to me.
All right, man. Hey, that is Bellator 273. We made it, man. We survived the entire card. So the very first thing I'm going to do when I jump off the show with you here is I am going to run to bet Darrion Caldwell and snatch up some of that plus money while it still exists. I think plus 110 or plus 115 out there is the best that I am going to be able to do. And then I think the only other move that I really must make right away is the 3-leg chalk parlay. Nikita with Mamedov and Moldavsky. I think those are the 3 favorites that I like. 3-legger parlay gets you about minus 130, minus 129, somewhere in that ballpark. And I think those are really going to be my 2 main spots for this card. I think if anything, Sabah Homasi, you can take a little bit of a flyer on. I do lean ever so slightly towards Henry Corrales. That's one where I'm going to wait for the weigh-ins to see. I think you can argue either side very effectively in that particular fight. And I do think that Saad Awad is really the other underdog that is kind of jumping off the page at me as the line being too wide, where if I'm going to take a shot where I roll the dice on plus 220, Saad Awad is probably the guy where I take that shot.
Makes sense to me, man. I mean, I'm with you. I think you're looking at a pretty strong card betting wise.
Crossing my fingers, man. Anything that you want to throw out there as far as, you know, the official picks or bets or anything? I know you've got your Patreon, so don't give anything away. Obviously, we don't want to hose your paid members, but if there's any final closing thoughts on betting, and then of course, you know, the floor is yours to shout out your content wherever people can find you. Go right ahead, man. It's all you.
Yeah, honestly, you know, I think I've pretty much kind of spilled the goods, honestly, if you catch my drift, as far as what I have gambling wise. A couple things, you know, I am going to wait for weigh-ins, so maybe I do throw on a couple additions there late for the Patreon members. But man, no, follow me on Twitter, absolutely, Bleed MMA. You'll find me. It's you see the logo behind me. You'll find my Twitter, no problem. Yeah, subscribe to my YouTube channel, all that good stuff. You can find me on Instagram, all that stuff. I don't have a TikTok yet, like my man Clint here. That's probably for the better. You guys don't want to see me twerking, but
get those numbers up.
hey, I give you all the props in the world, man. Honestly, I'm not kidding. I said a long time ago, the first guy who gets to TikTok is going to find some success. I think you're the one, and look at you go. Right. So right on. But hey, man, no, appreciate everybody watching. Absolutely, man. You know, thanks so much for the viewers. If it weren't for you guys, obviously, we'd just be here talking to ourselves. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Thanks to Pub Sports Radio. Thanks to all the diehards that watch this show in and out every week. You know, I know our fan bases, Clint, have a ton of overlap, man. And the guys that, you know, absolutely show you the best of love that are show up, you know, week in and week out. They're over here doing the same thing for me, man. And, you know, I appreciate those guys so much. Hopefully we can have some fun, win you guys some money, put some money in your pockets, and man, keep the train rolling. It's MMA, baby. We don't ever have an off season. And hey, what else can you do? Can't wait to come back. I'll leave it at that, man. Can't wait to come back on the show.
Hey, we always love having you, man. One of the best and brightest out there, one of the OGs, and we really do have that overlapping fan base. We've built a solid community of people that like to rally around us, degenerate gamblers, and it's been nothing but awesome, man. So appreciate you taking the time out and jumping on the podcast with me tonight. It has been fun as always. We will definitely do it again. Thank you to the viewers who hung in with us here on a Monday. Appreciate all of you. Again, hit that like button on your way out if you haven't already, please. We would very much appreciate it. And coming off of a loss, guys, this is one of those weeks where we got to remind ourselves it's the long game. Sports gambling, if you're looking to get rich quick on a weekend, it almost never works. And I say almost because every once in a while somebody hits a lottery ticket. But more often than not, this is a long, slow grind. I've dug myself a hole to start the year. We've got a whole full calendar year to dig ourselves back out of said hole. So it's all about that tenacity, sticking with it, sticking to what works. We're going to dig deep. We're going to work hard. I promise you that. And you know what? if I wouldn't get kicked off YouTube for it, I would steal the promo scene from Captain Marvel. Like maybe the only good part about that movie, where in the trailer she gets knocked down and stands up like throughout her life over and over again. The movie was trash. But that promo was actually solid for it and very inspirational. And like Apollo Creed says, there is no tomorrow. Get out there and kick some ass, everybody. Have a good week. We will see you back here next week on Monday. Good luck on all that degenerate action. Cash the Ducks ticket, and let's go. Let's roll.